Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's having a lovely start to the month. And here we are talking about Pride Month with our wonderful speakers, Kath Pierce and Thomas Anderson-Thatcher. So Kathryn Pierce is the founder and director of Somewhere and founder and editor of Somewhere for Us magazine. And Thomas is the director of Somewhere and founder and editor of the magazine as well. So welcome both of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. What a day to start off.
Yeah, you organised sunshine, well done.
So thank you, and thank you for your fabulous backgrounds as well. Thomas in particular, I think everyone can appreciate a good multicoloured giraffe and a good cabinet as well.
Every house needs one.
For sure. So yeah, welcome. Creative Circles is a place for us to really share some of the incredible work that's happening in the city, and we really wanted to invite you guys along to talk about your work with Somewhere. So let's kick it off. Tell us a bit about where Somewhere started. I know it's a big question, but I'll let you go for it.
It is. Thanks, Anna. I guess so, to give everyone a little bit of context and background to the project. So I've got a dual career of sorts, as far as people in the creative industries have a career, as we all know. A mixture of some media production, so print, I was a TV producer for a while, and then advocacy. So I've also supported people with learning differences and disabilities, and people like me who are on the autistic spectrum. I was based in Manchester since 2000, and I've been working in a talent agency that I'd helped build into a bigger business, and I wanted to start something of my own. And my parents had always been self-employed, and I wanted to try and find a new sort of organisation that combined creativity and advocacy. And then the catalyst for the Somewhere project came about in 2014, and that's when I was co-chair of Manchester's LGBT choir at the time, and I developed a successful anti-hate crime campaign, and I kind of discovered arts activism, or I think some people call it artivism, which I quite like, and that's where actually the choir first linked in with Thomas, as the campaign won one of Thomas's Inclusive Networks Awards in 2015. So then I'm still in Manchester at this point. So I took the leap in 2015 that's when I was in the talent agency. I left my job, my well-paid media job. It's like, who does that? But I did. I decided to go back to school. So I returned to uni and learned all about business, doing an enterprise master's. And I did the programme at the School of Social Entrepreneurs in Liverpool. And then I created the Somewhere business design and prototype in Manchester, designed to be a sort of creative platform, a fresh and dynamic way of providing a new organisation for the community. Originally designed to be a physical venue, actually, on Canal Street. But then everything changed, and 2017 appeared, post-Brexit, all sorts of big changes, I'm sure everyone will remember, in 2016. And then I moved north, and Thomas and I finally met, because we'd actually been connected on social, and both lived in Manchester, but never met each other. So that was lovely. And we got to meet, and in 2018, we set up Somewhere together up here. And our first year was spent building relationships, getting to know everybody, meeting partners, developing projects, and we launched our first projects, which was the Somewhere at the Fringe project, and also Scotland's first LGBTQ Masters Scholarship. That all happened in the first year. But that's enough from me. There's plenty to add to that. So Thomas, do you want to pick up there?
We did. So yeah, our first meeting was it was in the Fruit Market Gallery, which was kind of a sign of where things might go. So the magazine at that point wasn't a developed idea at all. It was probably on a list somewhere. We had lots of lists at that point, kind of like anything. There was lots of meetings, lots of discussing kind of ideas that might stick. We knew what was needed in Scotland through both being part of the LGBT community but also being part of lots of forums and kind of hearing from friends and family and charities and all of that. So we were very much full of ideas. And like Kath said, the first year was really successful, but part of on that list of things that actually happened was very small. We had we've still got a long list of things we would like to develop. So yeah, the Fringe, somewhere at the Fringe was a really exciting kind of project for us to do, because we both love the Fringe, we both love arts and culture, but it was a real good opportunity for us to meet new people and work with new people and really kind of put our little foothold, a little kind of our little stamp on the kind of arts and culture scene in Edinburgh and help amplify LGBTQ plus voices. And I say that because that's the bit that really stuck for us, because it was very much needed. Kind of LGBTQ culture and art is so rich, and it's so vibrant, but outside of LGBTQ plus press and media, it's not particularly talked about on the same scale as other shows. So we really wanted to try and help influence change that. So Somewhere at the Fringe was launched. Yeah, so we had a really good first year, really good second year, and then something happened in the world, which kind of made the third year a bit more difficult. Well, it didn't actually happen, so it kind of cancelled out those plans. But then it was a real catalyst for kind of what came next. So yeah, so that brought us on to kind of bringing together the writing side and the creative side, and all of those people we'd met, all of the writers, and think, well, actually, what do we do next? So prior to kind of being involved with Somewhere and kind of launching the Scottish activity with Kath, I'd been the chair of the Co-op Group's LGBTQ plus network in Manchester, and through that, I'd kind of spearheaded the support of lots of 85 community projects for the co-op support of different prides, sponsoring the Attitude Awards and the Pink News Awards and all that sort of stuff. And I'd also founded the Co-op's magazine, LGBT magazine, Respect. And whilst I was in Scotland, I'd also piloted an LGBT, well, diversity magazine. So magazines and that side was always of interest to me, and it's of huge interest to Kath. So kind of on that list, that long list I mentioned earlier, was a magazine. So we kind of thought, well, actually, do you know what? Now's the time to do it. And that was November 2019. We kind of really thought about a magazine. So it wasn't actually that long ago. So we had the first meetings and then decided, well, actually, we're going to launch it in May 2020. So not a massive turnaround. So in that time, we kind of developed the idea for the magazine and met the designers, writers, mapped out the issue, and then COVID hit. So I'll pass over to Kath.
It did, yeah. And I suppose a really important bit in that is that, you know, it was when we got our first funding. So Somewhere's a community interest company. And what that means is it's kind of a hybrid type organisation. That means that we can act as a limited company, but we exist purely for the community, but it also gives us access to grant funding. And that was absolutely key, because I need to do a massive shout out to Eileen and the team at Unlimited, because they were just incredible. So we basically had everything ready to go, and then COVID hit, and it was touch and go at one point that we really didn't know whether we'd be able to launch at all. And Unlimited were absolutely fantastic. So they helped us with that sort of seed funding so that we could get the first magazine up and running and out there. And then, yeah, we knew it was needed, and we certainly knew how much the community particularly been so marginalised during COVID. But the response has been amazing, hasn't it, Thomas?
Yeah, it's yeah, just even from kind of writers, I think we approached the magazine a bit differently. And first we need to acknowledge LGBTQ plus magazines in Scotland. Somewhere for us isn't the first, but it's the first that's doing it in this way. There have been, the first one, Gay Scotland, launched in the 1970s, believe it or not, and ran until the mid-90s. And that was a really important part of Scottish kind of the LGBT culture, and helped so many groups and businesses like Lavender Menace. I know the bookshop, they really relied on it back in the day to try and kind of spread the word and kind of grow their business and their events and stuff. Steen Alba, Scots Gay, D&G Queerer, Undivided Lines. There's lots of different publications out there. Some exist purely digital, some exist as a volunteer model, as in they'll create something for the community, kind of people giving their time and features for nothing and just spreading some joy. But we wanted to create opportunities, paid opportunities for people. So our model is really based on that. So our writers and contributors are paid above the rate, above the standard rate for the word count that we ask of our writers. The illustrators are paid, the cover artists are paid, which shouldn't sound extreme because that's how it should be. But it is quite rare, which is quite worrying. But we really wanted to kind of start off on that footing that will actually, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it in a way that's sustainable, not as a kind of a project, a happy project that, yeah, we love magazines and we love creating things, so let's do it, but do it for nothing. That wasn't really the purpose. The purpose is for the greater good. And so we're really, throughout the first 3 issues, there's been 3 illustrators. Well, we've worked with 6 illustrators. We've worked with probably about 30 writers, and they've all been, so during COVID, especially when it's been needed, and I'd like to think we've kind of created a little bit of we've created a lot of joy. I know that. Somebody on Twitter said the other week, it's a real bundle of queer joy, the magazine, which I think really summed it up, and that's something we're really going to pinch and kind of use going forward. But I think at this time, when especially the arts and culture sector have been just kind of abandoned, really, from the mainstream support from the government, I'd like to think we've helped in a tiny little way.
It sounds like
I think. Sorry, Anna.
No, I was just going to say, it sounds like it's really created that impact. You know, you've got all of these contributors coming in, and you're really kind of raising the awareness and creating this amazing platform. And you were just talking there about the going into the pandemic and launching it. How was it to do that for both of you? I'll ask Kath first, but Thomas, do come in as well.
I think we always wanted the magazine to be both print and digital in format, for all sorts of reasons, accessibility and otherwise. But also because Thomas and I both love the sort of sensory experience of holding a magazine. So all of the choices around colours and paper and everything else. So I guess the reason I mentioned that first is because we all know how important the post suddenly became. So the world of having everything delivered, that of course existed before, but it's been incredibly important, hasn't it, during COVID? So that, I think, we were even more determined that there would be a print version. I think, especially, particularly for people in the community who've been extremely marginalised, we were very, very keen that they had access to something that was theirs and, you know, is fully representing a sort of very broad spectrum of the community. So I guess that as a priority became an absolute definite when we did it. Wouldn't you say, Thomas? Is there anything I missed there on that point? That's probably about right.
Yeah, no, I think that's hit the nail on the head, really.
Yeah. And then I think it was really just to see how it landed, because what we tried to do with the magazine is it's got a very broad spectrum of content. We're extremely committed to a very wide breadth of representation. That's very important. And so the magazine itself covers arts, culture, heritage, and enterprise. And the reason we did that, those are the sort of the key pillars of Somewhere's work, was also to keep it as appealing to as many people in the community as possible. and also in a nice kind of serendipitous way, is that somebody might order an arts magazine and then, you know, read the business bit and think, oh, I didn't know about that queer business that, you know, makes chocolate or makes jewelry, and now I want to support them because it happened to be in the magazine. So I think that focused us even more, I think.
Brilliant. Yeah, definitely. It's a great opportunity for that exposure and to kind of get people to tap into what's there and kind of breaking that out of those kind of more siloed communities and making sure that it becomes mainstream and, you know, for the people, definitely. And through that time, you've obviously worked with all these incredible collaborators, and straight off the back as well, I believe you had the collaboration with Beano, like straight after launch. Could you tell us a bit about that and how that came about?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, I'll start this one. So I think, firstly, we plan to launch the first issue in May of 2020. So that first issue turnaround, so the first issue, we'll come to the Beano. The first issue, kind of the 4 months turned into 9 months to actually do the first issue. So that kind of gave us a lot of time to think and a lot of time to really have faith in what we were doing, and to hear other people really appreciate what we were doing, because they were having early glimpses. So that gave us some confidence, and a bit of definitely a lot of confidence. So we were thinking about the second issue, and Kath had suggested, just one day, kind of, oh, why don't we kind of ask the Beano to do something? So again, this was months before we'd even launched the first issue.
Yeah.
So in everything we do, we think, well, why not? People can only say no. It's like, well, what's the worst that can happen? So we approached the Beano, and quite quickly, to our surprise, we got an email back from Mike Sterling, who's the head of Beano Studios Scotland, who's a real ally for the community, saying, well, yeah, really like what you're doing, like the model. Let's have a call. So we're like, okay, we didn't really expect that. So in our minds, we kind of had our idea of, the Beano's got a huge portfolio of assets. Obviously, Banana Man, sort of from Bill DC Thompson, Banana Man, then you've got this traditional Beano characters and stuff. So to myself, growing up, obviously Dennis the Menace was never too far away, although maybe you wouldn't really associate Dennis with being an ally back in the day. Things have changed massively the last probably decade. And to Kath, Minnie the Minx was probably the real star, kind of, that we wanted to kind of, if we were going to develop an idea, Minnie the Minx was going to be the star of the show. Kath can explain a little bit about her, so her kind of the link with Minnie the Minx.
Yeah, so Minnie, so I have two brothers, and I have brothers who they would read the Beano and the Dandy, and I would get Twinkle magazine. See, that does age me. If anyone remembers that, then you're old like I am. And so yeah, and I kind of, grab the Beano and the Dandy whenever I could, in between reading girly things and Twinkle. And Minnie the Minx, I just loved her because she just didn't care. She was just determined to do things her way, and I always loved her as a little kind of cartoon role model. So I said, when we approached Beano, and I said, are you aware that Minnie the Minx, I think, personally speaking, please, everyone say what you think, but I think she's definitely a lesbian icon or queer icon, because look at her. She's just, she just does what she wants to do. And we sort of said to them, has Minnie had any sort of, has she ever worn a rainbow jumper, for example? And she hadn't, had she, Thomas? So we kind of thought, well, now's the time.
Yeah, and it was all very subtle. It was, again, these sorts of things you think, yes, it's nothing major, but we thought to ourselves, kind of, let's kind of pride up Beano World, Beano Town. So that kind of that conversation, that first call, was really positive. Like I say, it was before we'd launched the first issue. So they were very much wanting to see the quality of our output, which you would. So we kind of presented mock-up pages. Again, there were mock-up pages. I mean, our first issue went from 50 pages in development to 82 when we launched, and now it's 98. So that's what time gives us. It's kind of okay. It's kind of grew arms and legs. So we presented mock-up pages. A few more calls happened, and then, to our kind of amazement, they gave us kind of full creative control over what that cover looked like, because of the kind of the faith they had in kind of what we were going to be doing. And that's kind of where the parts I really enjoy with the magazine is kind of taking the initial idea and developing a concept for a cover. So kind of I presented the initial idea of kind of taking it to Dundee, because it's really important to us that each cover we go to a different part of Scotland, although albeit sometimes reimagined. So you'll see parts of a place that you might recognise, but we might have had a bit of creative control of what it actually turns out to look like. Let's check the new cover out. So yeah, we took it to Dundee. We thought, well, actually, arts and culture, what's iconic? The V&A. You can't get any more real iconic and from a new building and architecture and such a statement. And then just well, it's not by chance. What have you got next to the V&A? You've got the Discovery ship, which is an old exploration ship and about exploring and all of that. So we thought, well, let's have Minnie kind of jumping on a rope from the ship, which is what you see there.
Got a little flag as well, isn't she? She's
yeah, with a flag on top. But then let's kind of incorporate the diverse kind of youth, a real kind of a celebration in the kind of the image where we would bring kind of Dundee's LGBTQ plus kind of youth groups and allies and mix them in with some famous Beano characters. So initially we weren't brave enough to ask for, well, we thought they'd say no, like Denis the Anderson-Thatcher. So we thought, well, actually, out of anything, yeah, maybe Minnie they'd let us kind of get away with. But then we did think, well, actually, we'd love that. And then it was actually Beano who said, well, why don't you put Denis and why don't you use Denis and Thatcher as well? So we really had fun with that. Then this year, the Tie campaign, which is a Scottish charity founded by Jordan and Liam, who were really kind of done stellar work, kind of spearheading, incorporating LGBTQ plus topics onto the curriculums in Scottish state schools, and need to be applauded for that, because we're still far from having equality embedded and being kind of a natural go-to in especially UK government, especially at the moment. We seem to be going backwards, sadly. So we thought, well, actually, we'll celebrate the Tie campaign on the cover. So we incorporated their Tie logo, and we thought, well, actually, let's change some of the perception from Denis from years gone by, and let's really embed him as being a community ally, which kind of he is. So he's kind of carrying his little tin of pride paint. So he's really helping make the Tie kind of pride boards and stuff. So that was the cover. So Beano really got on board, and we worked with Laura Howell, who is a Beano illustrator. So it's worth saying that we'd already approached Laura before we approached Beano, because again, we thought, well, actually, whatever, we'd do something with Laura, because she does work outside of Beano. And Laura was the first female permanent illustrator to draw a Beano comic. So she was the first, the strip, Minnie the Minx. So she was really a really real trailblazer, which was really, that was our kind of, that was really what drew us into kind of approaching Laura. Yeah. And then, yeah, that's how the cover happened. So Kath's probably got something to add.
Well, it was really just to say, also, it kind of, because it was LGBT History Month as well, because issue 1 was November, issue 2 is February, issue 3's just come out in May. was just really to show that we were very proactively collaborative, and especially sort of reaching out and working with LGBT Youth Scotland, particularly in February, and LGBT health and wellbeing we've worked very closely with as well and continue to do so, and also in that issue 2, and we're going to continue it as a feature, we have like a community takeover section in the magazine. So, and that's where we also give space to, complete sort of free reign to another group or another publication or another, definitely sort of in a different part of Scotland, just so that everyone gets a chance to be part of the magazine. So, and because it's designed as a collaborative platform, this isn't about Thomas and myself, and it's not about us at all. And even us talking together here in this scenario is actually really rare, because we're not really sort of very public people either. So, and I think it's really important for us to sort of also have the chance to say that, Somewhere as a magazine literally is a place for everybody in the rainbow and ally community. So just get in touch with us if you have any ideas for features.
Yeah. And then just as a last thing for the Beano Collab, it's really important for us to say as well, as it wasn't just it's the Beano, let's do something that's going to look great in the magazine. There is a legacy project to it as well. So we did produce some limited edition prints and posters, which are available still on our website, somewhereforus.org, in our shop. And a percentage of those, the profits, we did donate to the Thai campaign. So again, it was an authentic, like anything, we weren't just going to put their logo on the cover and think, right, we have the right to do that, because we could do it, but we really wanted an authentic link to that. And then working with the Beano as well for going on to issue 5, and we are going to collaborate with a Scottish charity, to identify a young LGBTQ plus person who wants to forge a career in the arts, whether that's through comics or through magazines, and they will be given an opportunity to spend some time with some of the Beano staff, and then also will have an opportunity to creatively have an input into the magazine, whether that be through writing, illustrating, or even perhaps creating the cover. We don't know.
Wow.
And that will be a paid opportunity for that person. So they will be paid for that, and they will also receive some tools to help them get started, whether that's an iPad or whether it's more traditional pen and paper and all of that, depending on what kind of methods they use to create the work.
Sounds absolutely brilliant, and there's so much going on, and there's so much innovation happening. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about the business model itself. You've touched on it a little bit, but it would be great to hear a little bit how that's structured. I'll direct that to Kath first, and then Thomas can jump in.
Yeah, so I guess from a sort of creativity point of view, I personally feel, not to say that Thomas doesn't, by the way, but I personally am very passionate about entrepreneurship, and I'm a sort of creative person, not in I'm not a performer. I wish I could get on a stage and speak, but that's not going to happen. I like to write, obviously, with the magazine, but I also think actually making a business is a really creative thing to do. I think I kind of visualize the business. I have sort of I was thinking about, if anyone remembers in Back to the Future, when I think it's Doc Brown, isn't he bang his head and then comes up with a design for the flux capacitor? Well, I kind of had a bit of a moment like that with Somewhere, and had like a business model design in my head. And I guess what's really brilliant about it is watching that build. So just like Thomas said earlier this morning before we came on, that he's just got your Lego set, haven't you, Thomas? That's come this morning. And it's a bit like that. And I think creating an organization that didn't exist before, and creating it in a way that, you know, we felt we could, you know, Thomas and I can sort of be our authentic selves, not necessarily be answerable. We're very answerable to the community, and that's very important. But for example, like other magazines, you know, can be owned by much bigger companies who aren't necessarily LGBTQ. So we wanted that. But also, and I guess we haven't mentioned that, is that somewhere also, as well as being a magazine, we also do other projects. We're very closely linked in with universities, with scholarships and placements. And we've also got a PhD that we've just started with the University of Edinburgh about LGBTQ entrepreneurship. Is that we wanted to give back. So as well as if you join as a member, 20% of your membership subs automatically go into our business funds. So our sort of community grants that we've got, the Somewhere Arts and Culture Fund and the Somewhere Enterprise and Research Fund. And so what we wanted to do is create, it runs on its own circular economy of giving and supporting. So by people supporting the magazine, we can then support the community in return, who then support us in return. And then, you know, the more support we get, then the more, you know, resources we have to do further projects. And so I guess, and I've loved all of that journey, and that continues to be a fascinating journey. But I think ultimately, Somewhere is all about visibility. And that's a key thing, is that we want it to be in whatever shape or form it has, be it the magazine, the research projects, the new business enterprise network, which is something probably we'll mention shortly. It's just all about us being out and visible and supported. And even if it's not appropriate for somebody to be, you know, publicly out, at least they can be out in a safe space in the Somewhere community. So yes, that's all been built into our business model, which sort of grows, it's like it sort of unflowers as we get bigger and grow more. It kind of reveals itself. And I guess I would say on a very personal level that you know, Somewhere has been a very personal journey as well, and actually creating it has supported me as an individual, because it's meant that I've been able to make something that was purposeful, that meant a lot to me, that used my skills, but wasn't performance, because that's just something I'm so uncomfortable with. And yeah, and I think, and in doing that, Somewhere's helped me, and I hope, you know, it's already helping other people as well. So I'm rambling now. Thomas, help.
No. I think just to add on for that, I think it's, yeah, I think the model is quite unique, because I think, like Kath just said, LGBTQ plus publications, which were more than that, are kind of on the whole set up to be a corporate entity, to make profit for an individual, and may have some fringe things on the side that might support charities in different ways. So this definitely isn't that. So if you're just finding out about the magazine for the first time, we're a community, like we said earlier, we are a community interest company. Every penny we generate goes back into the business model, really, supporting Scotland's arts, culture, heritage, and enterprise communities.
It all sounds absolutely fantastic, and it's, you know, massive credit to both of you for kicking this through 2020 in the best way possible. I guess my final question is, what's next? What's on the horizon?
I guess, well, the focus, obviously, the magazine is that's our sort of central project, and we want to continue to make sure that's the best it can be. And we're so happy that we get so much feedback as well from readers, so that, you know, we're constantly developing it to make sure it's something that people want to see and want to be part of. So yes, I guess as I mentioned earlier, we're also, along with the magazine in November, we also soft launched a new Rainbow Enterprise Network. And basically that came from when I did my Enterprise Masters in Manchester. I did my my research into LGBTQ entrepreneurship, and I felt very unsupported as a queer person. I couldn't find any business support that looked after me, I guess, and sort of understood what my particular experiences might be like as setting up a new business. So with that in mind, and with the results of that research from Manchester, that's also obviously part of what I brought up in Scotland. And obviously all of Thomas's fantastic experience with the co-op and everything else, we thought to create the Rainbow Enterprise Network. We sort of soft launched it with the magazine last November. And obviously everyone's been in the thick of the pandemic, and obviously businesses hit extremely hard, particularly self-employed people hit very hard. And yeah, that's the big next thing alongside the magazine, is that we have this lovely, small and growing membership of LGBTQ businesses, but of all sizes, and allied businesses, very important to say. So different tiers of membership depending on if you are an LGBTQ micro business, or if you're part of a much bigger ally organisation, such as some of the universities, as an example. And yeah, we're creating that place where LGBTQ business owners can support each other, and we're starting a new mentoring scheme, because that's also a big part of my entrepreneurship passion. Is I'm also a mentor, so that's our next kind of big thing, running alongside the magazine. So we're quite busy, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think it's bringing everything alive as well, because I think the last 12 months everything's been online or social media, and social media is really draining. It's especially when you kind of when you need to promote something, you've got to do it, and social media has really been the only way to kind of get the word out there, and it's great. And obviously you don't have to spend you don't have to spend any money on it, but really the idea of somewhere for us, the magazine, isn't about it being flat. It's about really kind of having these vibrant and diverse events that are going to kind of coincide with the launch of every issue, which kind of bring the community of collaborators together. So when we launch an issue, we will launch every issue with a launch event, which will be a kind of an event where we platform the content. So we have in every issue we have the Somewhere for Us gallery. So at these events we would like that to be a physical gallery of that artist, all the contributors and the illustrators. If we're having enterprise, where we have lots of enterprise features and lots of really interesting features, then we would have a panel event, and we would invite those people to come and share pockets of their background, and share it with our Rainbow Enterprise Network members and our membership of the magazine. So the values really, the magazine, although it's a printed magazine, digital magazine, a magazine issue will be more than just this beautiful printed magazine. It will be a physical event as well, which brings the magazine alive, and also something that's really missing the last few years, which is Pride events, and just events in just general, because they're such a massive part of us engaging with the wider Scottish LGBTQ plus community, and that's going to be part of our kind of growing the magazine and the brand and reaching more people. But I'm really happy to say on this call that for our new issue, which is Seaside Pride, 200 copies of that issue are currently being distributed around the Highlands of Scotland, which is amazing for us to kind of know that actually, especially in the more isolated communities where there's a real lack of support infrastructure, whether it's community groups or Pride events, that there really isn't a lot in some of these communities. Although there are some fantastic people and kind of groups doing some work, it is harder to reach them. And especially if you're not out, it's quite risky to try and engage with some of these organisations in a face-to-face or a real person way. So what's next for us is actually just getting out there and kind of meeting real people.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually in real life.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well,
So
it sounds so exciting, and it really does sound like, well, I'm so glad that we're able to share somewhere today, because somewhere really is somewhere for all of us, and it really is wonderful to be shouting about it today. I'm going to invite some questions from the audience now. So if you haven't popped a question in, pop that into the chat and we'll share those. But I believe we've got one. I think Caitlin has a question.
Yeah. Hello. So much. I really enjoyed that, and especially I love that sort of celebration of having a physical edition on your answers to why you have that. I think that is showing in your like launch event ethos as well. Like that's really what that gave me lots of joy. But I was wondering if there was anything sort of along this that surprised you. I know sort of obviously there's the huge surprise of COVID, but other than that, like was there anything like in the sort of publication process, the printing process, the collecting of writers together, that was a surprise and either a challenge or a joy or a mixture of the two?
I would probably say, Caitlin, I guess it was the access to funding. So the pandemic, obviously, in that context has been a surprise to everybody, but what it has done is there have been more funds released to support the LGBTQ community in recovery than perhaps would have been available to the community had there not been a pandemic. So I think we were surprised by actually the access to having some of those supportive funds that wouldn't have been there otherwise, and we probably wouldn't have made it had they not been there. So yeah, I think so. That was the biggest one. Thomas?
Yeah, I think I mean, you mentioned the printing process, just regarding kind of just creating something. Yeah, I think it's generally how something looks when it comes off the printing press is kind of, you'd always like it to be a bit better. And again, the quality of the magazine is fantastic, and the content's really good. But we're both perfectionists, and sometimes just even a little niggle of something being a few mil out or whatever, you concentrate too much time on that, and it's kind of, yeah. So I think just on the little thing, yeah, that's just been a little bit of it's been a frustration at times. But again, we've been dealing with people who have been on lockdown themselves. I mean, again, we've printed 3 magazines during a period of complete uncertainty. So yeah, so sometimes things on the full process have taken a little bit longer, or things have had to be shifted. Staff have been on furlough, or all of that. But on the whole, we've had a really good experience with the magazine. But yeah, we're on issue 3. We have changed printers. We're on our 2nd printer. So.
But also, I was just leading on from what Thomas just said there about creating the issues remotely. What it's also done is proven that as a sort of business model that we can work remotely. So actually, yeah, if circumstances change for either of us in any way, be that where we live, etc., it means that somewhere is robust, and it means that we can, as long as we've got Wi-Fi, do it.
Yeah, because we produced. I mean, the last 2 issues have been fully produced without any of the team meeting in real life. So we've done 2 issues where none of the creative team have met in person. None of the contributors. We haven't even met most of the. We've never met anybody in real life. So it's kind of, like I said earlier, we just can't wait to get out there and meet people.
We actually properly need a launch party, to be honest.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, it's well overdue, so we can invite everybody, writers and as many readers as possible. So yeah, we need to get that sorted as soon as everyone knows what's happening.
Absolutely, and we will share that. Yes, I was going to say we will share that far and wide. And just to close, just before we started this call, we were talking about playlists and what music we're talking about today and what we thought might sum up or be a good way to launch Pride Month this year, and play a bit of music later today. And you mentioned that there is a playlist recommendations in your issue.
There is. Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could share your favorite tune, and then maybe we can prompt our audience to share yours in the chat, and then maybe we can play some of that during the break and at every opportunity this month, I guess. So please pop those in the chat. But Kath and Thomas, what are your tunes?
Sorry, Thomas. Yeah, you go first.
I think in the magazine, I'm going to pick a different one to what I've got in the magazine, because I think with music, it changes all of the time, and when I kind of submitted my magazine entry, it was a bit different. So I picked What Have I Done to Deserve This by the Pet Shop Boys and Dusty Springfield, because it's such a tune. But I think for today, I'll pick Bronski Beat, Small Town Boy, because it's such a, again, until you start and read about the song and the times, and I mean, 1984, the song was released by a group of out and proud gay men who were on a major record label in 1984, being themselves when people weren't themselves, and there was real kind of, well, the stigma now, but there was even extra stigma then of your careers being affected. So, and Jimmy Somerville, who is the frontman, is from Glasgow, and has a huge career, especially in the 80s, and is a big part of our new issue. Through a feature written by Scott Cuthbertson of the Equality Network, and a nice illustration by Zoo, which again, we're raising money this month for LGBT Youth Scotland. So £2 from every sale of this on our web shop will be going to the charity. And the reaction from this message is Jimmy did slip into our DMs about it, and his sisters bought some prints and stuff. So I think just for this week, it's definitely Small Town Boy by Bronski.
Excellent. And Kath, what's yours?
I totally can't top that, can I? Because yeah, there's a whole story attached to that, like Jimmy's sister, which is fab. I think I'd probably just go for Born This Way, because it's just awesome.
Brilliant. A good solid choice there. Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, I think we're going to bring that to a close. Thank you so much for sharing how your journey and all the work that you've been doing. It's been really fantastic to see how things have grown and the amazing opportunities that you're creating for the community and wider. We're wishing you all the luck in the world to get that next issue out, and we're very much looking forward to joining you at the launch event when that takes place. So please do share that with us. I'm going to